I was like, hello? Just normal. And she immediately starts saying, what did you do? What did you put in my drink?
You did this so something would happen to the baby. Those were the last clear words Jade Benning ever spoke. Not to a 911 dispatcher, not to a doctor, to the man standing in the room with her, while her best friend listened on the other end of a phone call, helpless, hearing everything. Seconds before that, Jade had been screaming, "What did you do? What did you put in my drink? I can't feel my legs. I can't walk straight. I knew my drink tasted funny. Show me your pocket. Show me what's in your hand." Then her words slurred. Then silence. 6 minutes, gone. 13 minutes later, the man in that room called 911. He told dispatchers his girlfriend was having an allergic reaction. When asked about the usual signs, rash, hives, swelling, he said she didn't have any of those. Paramedics arrived to find her face down across the bed. No pulse. Pink foam around her mouth. 5 months pregnant. 20 minutes. That's how long it took, from her last words, to that apartment going dark. 24 minutes before that call, in the last photo ever taken of Jade Benning, she was smiling, kissing his cheek, holding up the canvas she'd painted for her daughter's nursery. Love, hope, peace. He had painted a black hole. His name is Blaise Taylor, former Tennessee Titans scout, former college football star, and what police found when they started digging went far deeper than one poisoned drink. And the most chilling part? Jade wasn't the first woman he'd planned to do this to. Before we go anywhere near that apartment, before the pink lemonade, before the phone call, before any of it, you need to know who Jade Benning was, because this story is easy to reduce to its crime, and she deserves better than that. Jade Tristan Benning was born on March 6, 1998, in Little Rock, Arkansas. She was the kind of child who made a room feel fuller. She started cheerleading at age 7. By high school, she was cheer captain at Little Rock Central, leading both JV and varsity squads. She was the kind of girl other girls looked up to, not because she demanded it, because she earned it. After high school, she followed a passion most people only have for food but never have the discipline to actually pursue. She enrolled at Brightwater Culinary Arts, graduated in 2020. A full culinary degree, a real skill, something she could build a life on. And build she did. She moved to Nashville, the city she believed could hold everything she was reaching for. She became head pastry chef at Mirabella's Table. She worked at Ernest Bar and Hideaway. She launched her own catering business, JTB Eatery. At 24 years old, she was already running her own operation. Her co-worker Lauren Weber described her this way. She just knew what was ahead of her. She was positive. She was going home after work. She was getting her apartment ready. She just wanted to be a mom, and she was ready to be a mom. That sentence, "she was ready to be a mom," is the heart of this entire story. Because by the time Lauren Weber said those words, that dream was already being used against her. Now let's talk about Blaise Taylor. Because if you only know his name from a headline, you might not understand why this case captured the country the way it did. Blaise Allen Taylor grew up in a football household. His father, Carl Trooper Taylor, is one of the most decorated position coaches in college football. Over 30 years in the sport, Trooper was on the Auburn staff for its undefeated national championship in 2010, a 3-time top 25 recruiter, a name that has appeared on rosters at Tennessee, Oklahoma State, and Texas A&M. Football was the family language. Blaise absorbed it. He played defensive back at Arkansas State from 2014 to 2017, became the Red Wolves' all-time leader in punt return yards, 1,089 yards, second most in Sun Belt Conference history at the time. He earned recognition as an NFF, National Scholar Athlete. He was believed to be the only active FBS player to complete both his bachelor's and master's degrees before his senior season. After college, a year at Duke as a graduate assistant coach. Then the Tennessee Titans, 4 years. The last 2 as a full-time pro scout. He was building something real in that organization. By every visible measure, Blaise Taylor was a man on his way up. A football pedigree, a national championship legacy by proximity, an NFL address on the resume, a reputation built on the idea that he was one of the good ones, disciplined, educated, respected. None of that is a character reference. Understand that now, because what a man does when something threatens that trajectory, when the carefully managed life he's built hits a variable he didn't plan for, that's the real character test. And Blaise Taylor failed it in the most irreversible way imaginable. Before we go further, if you're new here, welcome to Morbid Verdict. We cover true crime cases exactly like this one. Cases that don't just shock you, but make you think. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss one. Now let's get back into it. They matched on Hinge in January 2022. Didn't talk. The app does that sometimes. Connections that go dormant before they start. Then in August 2022, they reconnected, had dinner at Stony River, and something clicked. It was a casual arrangement by both accounts, non-exclusive. 2 people in Nashville who enjoyed each other's company while also seeing other people. That was the agreement. That was the understanding. At the end of September 2022, Jade thought she might be pregnant. She was right. On November 4th, 2022, she told Blaise Taylor. She told him the child was his. She wanted to keep the baby. He did not want her to. What happened next tells you everything about who each of them was in this relationship. Jade Benning sent a text to a friend. I'm going to tell him today that I'm not having the abortion, so he can just get it out of his head. And then she sent a message directly to Taylor. It is one of the most quietly devastating things in this entire case. She wrote, "You said how you felt, and stated that moving forward you want no part, so I will let it be that. I will not involve you at any point. I will love this child unconditionally, with or without you." She was freeing him. She was saying, "You don't have to do anything. You don't have to show up. I will handle this alone. I will love this baby enough for both of us." His response to that generosity would define the rest of this story. He told his parents he might be having a child with a woman he'd met. He told a coworker at the Titans office he did not want to become a father. And then, quietly, with no real explanation, he went silent. Until New Year's Eve. I want to pause here and ask you something. Drop it in the comments. When Jade sent that message releasing him from all responsibility, did she make the right call? Or do you think telling him she'd raise the child completely alone put her in a more dangerous position? Let me know what you think. On December 31st, 2022, Blaise Taylor reached out to Jade Benning. Nobody can say with certainty what was in his head that night. He has never explained it publicly, but we know what happened next. On January 1, 2023, they met at a park and talked for hours. By the end of that conversation, they had agreed to get to know each other, to try to build something as co-parents, or maybe more. Here is what the timeline tells you that neither of them said out loud. By New Year's, Jade was about 14 weeks pregnant. A surgical abortion was still possible at 14 weeks. It would not be possible for much longer. That timing is not an accusation. It's a fact, and it sits in the middle of this case like a splinter that won't come out. He went silent during the weeks when a quiet exit was available. He returned when the exit was narrowing. 7 weeks after that park conversation, She was clinically dead in her bedroom. The plan for the date on February 25th was spontaneous. Around 3:50 that afternoon, Jade invited Taylor to come over at 7. She'd cook. They'd paint. Something easy. Something warm. She made chicken Alfredo. Her best friend, Nijaya Jackson, who had known Jade since they were both 6 years old in Little Rock, came over with another friend, Keontae Jones, to eat and talk about the baby's nursery. Blaise Taylor was there. Jackson was meeting him for the first time. He had been mostly absent for the entire pregnancy. The plan for the evening was to paint 2 canvases to hang above the baby's crib. Jade's came out filled with color, wavy lines of green and yellow and pink, and 3 words written across it: love, hope, peace. And then, as the 4 of them talked about the nursery, Taylor's mood shifted. Jackson noticed it. His canvas, he told them, was going to be a black hole. He painted a solid black canvas with a single gray circle at its center. Jackson testified later that she found it strange. That is an understatement. Nijaya Jackson and Keontae Jones left the apartment sometime that evening. What matters is what happened after they left. At 9:25 p.m., Jade Benning's phone dialed Nijaya Jackson. The call began in silence on Jade's end, not the comfortable silence of a misdial. Jackson could hear Jade in the room, and Jade was not talking to her. She was talking to the man still in the apartment. What Jackson testified she heard next has been replayed in courtrooms, on news programs, and in the minds of everyone who has followed this case. Jade screaming, "What did you do? What did you put in my drink? Blaise, you're scaring me. I know you put something in my drink. I knew my drink tasted funny. I can't even walk straight. I can't feel my legs." Then Jackson said she heard Taylor's voice. Quiet. Almost even. "You're scaring me." That was his response. Jade kept going. The accusations kept coming. And then, according to Jackson's testimony, Jade stopped addressing Taylor and said the last clear sentence anyone would ever hear from her. "You did this so something would happen to the baby." After that, slurred words. Jackson called back. Taylor answered. He said Jade wasn't feeling well. He said he didn't know what was wrong. Jackson got in her car and drove back to the apartment as fast as she could. 13 minutes after that phone call began, at 9:38 p.m., Blaise Taylor called 911. He told the dispatcher they had been making cookies and painting when Jade said she wasn't feeling good. He said he thought she might be having an allergic reaction to food. When the dispatcher asked if she had a rash, hives, swelling, redness, he said no, she didn't have any of those. She had vomited. She wasn't responding to him. He didn't think she was allergic to anything. He wasn't sure. In his own later account to investigators, Taylor said he called his father first after Jade got sick. His father told him to call 911. When paramedics arrived at the apartment, they found Jade Benning face down on her bed. No pulse, pink frothy foam around her mouth. Her GCS score, a measure of consciousness, was 3, the lowest possible number. That score means complete unresponsiveness. One Nashville fire medic testified that Taylor appeared frantic but gave them no useful information. His idea of helping, the medic said, was to keep moving Jade himself, which only made it harder for them to treat her. The scene was considered too unsafe for CPR on location. They loaded her into the ambulance and began full resuscitation in transit. When Jackson arrived at the apartment, Taylor was still there. "She's just really pale," Jackson recalled. "She still has on the pajamas she was wearing when I left." And Blaise was going back and forth, back and forth. Jade Benning was rushed to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. She was clinically dead before the ambulance reached the hospital. If you've made it this far, you already know this story is unlike most. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Jade's name, And if you're not subscribed to Morbid Verdict yet, now is the time. We're just getting to the part that broke this case wide open. At 5 months pregnant, the doctors at Vanderbilt made a decision. If there was any chance of saving Jade's daughter, they had to act. Ivy was delivered alive. She was premature, she was tiny, and she survived. For 2 days, Ivy held on. On February 27, 2023, Ivy died. Jade was on life support. Her family stayed. They waited for something to change. It didn't. Then came March 6, Jade Benning's birthday, her 25th. The family made the decision to let her go. On the same day she was born into this world, she left it. 1 drink, 2 deaths, 9 days apart. That week, a Titans co-worker testified, Blaise Taylor came into work and acted completely normal. I need you to sit with that for a second. Jade and Ivy were both gone, and he walked into that office like nothing had happened. Drop a comment below. What does that tell you about him? Because I think it tells you everything. What happened next is where this case moved from a tragedy to a murder investigation. The toxicology results came back, and what they showed was something the Davidson County medical examiner said she had never encountered in her career, not in any overdose death she had ever processed. Jade Benning had cocaine in her system, not a trace, not an incidental amount, a level so elevated, so far beyond anything consistent with recreational use, that it defied explanation by any normal means. Jade had no known history of cocaine use, none. Dr. Carney, the medical examiner, testified, "The investigation does not show Ms. Benning as someone who used drugs historically or even recently close to her time of death. Her drug history involved marijuana, some Adderall, and occasionally mushrooms. Not cocaine. Never cocaine." The prosecution's theory, Blaise Taylor had dissolved cocaine in alcohol and mixed it into Jade's pink lemonade that night. He had handed her a drink designed to kill her, and there was something else. Detectives executing the search warrant on Jade's apartment noticed something missing. In photographs taken the night of the incident, photographs that captured the apartment before police fully secured the scene, there was a drinking cup visible in front of Jade. When investigators returned to execute the search warrant, that cup was gone. Detective Adam Reese testified about the missing cup. It suggested, prosecutors argued, that some cleanup had occurred at the scene before police arrived. A spontaneous plan doesn't come with cleanup. That cup was not accidental. The investigation continued for over a year. Prosecutors worked with toxicologists, medical experts, and detectives. They traveled to Arkansas to interview witnesses. A grand jury reviewed the evidence, and on March 26, 2024, more than a year after Jade's death, Blaise Taylor was arrested. Not in Nashville, not at home, in Utah, where he had relocated after Jade and Ivy died. Body camera footage showed Xavier Winford in a vehicle registered to her name at the time of his arrest. We'll come back to Xavier Winford in just a moment. The trial began on June 23, 2026 in Davidson County Criminal Court before Judge Steve Dozier. Taylor pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of felony murder. For 5 days, the jury heard testimony from friends, co-workers, investigators, and medical experts. Then came day 5, a Saturday. Prosecutors called one more witness. Her name was Apple Denny. Apple Denny was Blaise Taylor's ex-girlfriend. She testified that she had dated Taylor on and off in 2017, when they were both college students. At some point that year, Taylor told her he had gotten another woman pregnant. That woman's name was Xavier Winford, and Xavier Winford did not want to have an abortion. Taylor's reaction, according to Denny's testimony, was panic, erratic, urgent. He was Googling things. He was looking stuff up to figure out if there was something you could do to make her have an abortion, and asked me if I could get the abortion pills, and he could make her take them or put it in her drink. He had already been here before. He had already typed that search query. He had already thought about putting something in a woman's drink to end a pregnancy she refused to end herself. In 2017, 6 years before Jade. Apple Denny said no. She talked him out of it. Xavier Winford eventually chose to terminate the pregnancy on her own. That is the only reason Xavier Winford is alive today. By the time Blaise Taylor showed up at Jade Benning's apartment on February 25, 2023, 3 women had carried his pregnancies. And what he had rehearsed, what he had searched for, what he had mapped out in his mind back in 2017, he had finally done. This is the part of the case I keep coming back to. Apple Denny said no in 2017. Xavier Winford survived because of that. But what if Denny had said yes? What if she had gotten those pills? Would Jade Benning even have been in danger 6 years later? Or would Taylor have already been behind bars? Tell me what you think in the comments. This is the kind of detail that changes the entire shape of the story. Blaise Taylor's defense team, led by attorney Letitia Quinones-Hollins, made 3 core arguments. First, Jade had a history of drug use: marijuana, Adderall, mushrooms, THC cartridges. The defense argued that a woman with that history might have used cocaine on her own. Maybe the cocaine was hers. Maybe she took it voluntarily. Maybe this was an accidental overdose that had nothing to do with Blaise Taylor. Second, the crime scene had been contaminated. When Jade's family found out she was in the hospital, some of her friends went back to the apartment. They moved items. They took photos. They tried to find answers. The defense argued this compromised the scene's integrity and muddied what police could actually establish. Third, the timeline didn't support premeditation. The date was spontaneous. Jade only invited Taylor at 3:50 in the afternoon. So now the spontaneous plan is 3:50. Quinones-Hollins told the jury. He has 3 hours to cook up the elaborate plan to kill her. Those 3 arguments landed differently once the prosecution had finished. The drug history argument hit a wall when Dr. Carney testified that Jade had no history of cocaine use, none, and that the levels in her system could not be accounted for by recreational use. The contaminated scene argument was real, but it didn't explain the toxicology. And the 3-hour spontaneous plan argument missed one critical fact. Cocaine doesn't require elaborate preparation. You can dissolve it in alcohol. You can carry it in a pocket. The plan didn't need 3 hours. It needed a moment. Taylor did not take the stand in his own defense. Bridget Burks, Jade's mother, was the final witness for the prosecution. She testified about her daughter's childhood, about the plans Jade had made for the baby, about the text messages they exchanged in Jade's final days. "She was my life," Burks testified. "Everything I did was for her." And then Burks said something that stilled the entire courtroom. She repeated what Taylor had told Jade when Jade said she was keeping the baby. If she had the baby, he wanted nothing to do with the baby. He didn't want it to have his name. He didn't want the child to ever know who he was. On July 1st, 2026, after 8 days of testimony and closing arguments, the jury began deliberating. 2 hours, that's all it took. At approximately 2:20 p.m., the foreperson read the verdict aloud: guilty. Second-degree murder in the death of Jade Benning, guilty. First-degree premeditated murder in the death of Ivy, the unborn child, guilty. 2 counts of felony murder, all 4 counts, unanimous. Inside the courtroom, Jade's family held each other and wept. Her father, Dennis Browning, spoke to reporters outside. "Definitely glad everything is over and justice is served." Her mother, Bridget Burks, said she could finally feel relief. Shortly before 6 p.m., the jury recommended life in prison. Blaise Taylor will be eligible for parole after serving 51 years. He is 30 years old. His bond was revoked immediately following the verdict. His defense team released a statement. While we respect the jury system and the process, we must also respectfully disagree with today's verdict and plan to appeal the decision, because Blaise did not do this. He maintains that he is innocent, and we will continue working to prove that. He maintains his innocence. Sentencing for the remaining count is scheduled for September 9, 2026. The judge will determine whether the sentences will run consecutively or concurrently. The family was hoping for life without parole. They didn't get it. Blaise Taylor will be eligible for parole in 51 years. He'll be 81 years old. Is that justice? Or does the possibility of parole feel like a door that should have been permanently sealed? I want to know where you stand. Drop it in the comments. Life with parole or life without? And if the September 9th sentencing hearing changes anything, we will be covering it here on Morbid Verdict. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that update. Jade Benning wanted to be a mother. That was the beginning and the end of what she asked from the world. She didn't ask Blaise Taylor for money. She didn't ask him for a relationship. She told him in writing that she would love that child without him, that he could walk away, that she would never involve him, that she would carry everything alone. He couldn't accept that. Not because she was wrong, but because the child existing at all in the world, with his name, as proof of something he couldn't control, was the thing he couldn't live with. And so he painted a black hole in the room where she was hanging up love and hope and peace for her daughter. Her daughter, who lived 2 days, who was born into a world that had already taken her mother. Ivy never came home. Jade never turned 25. And the man who mixed cocaine into a pink lemonade and handed it to a woman who trusted him is going to spend the rest of his life inside a prison, which is exactly where he belongs. Her name was Jade Benning. She was 24 years old. She was a chef, a daughter, a best friend, a mother who never got to hold her baby. And she deserved every single year she didn't get. If this video moved you, share it, say her name, because the only thing worse than what happened to Jade Benning would be if nobody remembered it. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What part of this case hit you the hardest? Was it the phone call, the black hole canvas, the fact that Apple Denny said no in 2017 and potentially saved a life, only for this to happen 6 years later? Leave it in the comments. This community shows up for these conversations, and that's what keeps this channel going. If you're not already part of the Morbid Verdict family, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. We drop new cases every day, and I don't want you missing what's coming next. Follow Morbid Verdict on all platforms. The links are right below. Justice for Jade. Justice for Ivy. I'll see you in the next one.